My name is Louisa Boyd. I'm an artist and an arts educator. I work in lots of different mediums, but I do have a particular interest in working with printmaking to create three-dimensional paper sculptures. So my interest in printmaking I think is born out of a desire to experiment as an artist and to look for different methods and different ways of doing things. I really enjoy the fact that with print you can take one starting point, one image, and you can actually move that through a process, so you end up with lots and lots of different outcomes by doing things like layering different plates and printing and overprinting and changing different colours when you're working with things. I've even worked with one image, one printed image, and taken it into a secondary printing method. So I've worked with photographing etchings that I've made and then taken them into screen printed pieces. For me, again, it's just about pushing through and actually trying something new with the outcomes that you end up achieving. And an extension of this is the three-dimensional sculptures that I use in my work, and many of those have got different methods of printing within them. So they often have screen prints within them, they'll often have etchings within them, and I also do include a hand marbled paper in a lot of my work. I do have an interest in book arts, and I really like the fact that with artist books you can bring together aspects of print along with more traditional methods of bookbinding, and I think in some senses that's why the hand marbling has edged into my paper sculptures. It's another method of decorating paper which I think really appeals to me. It's got that random quality to it, the experimental quality to it, and it's something that I really enjoy using within my work too. In terms of using traditional methods, this is a really important aspect of my work. A lot of my work, the core part of it, is about establishing a sense of place, and it's about working with an idea that we are all made up of both our physical, natural environment that we live within, but also the environment of the people that surround us too. And there's something about using methods that have been passed down for generations, using things that are relating to our cultural heritage, which really appeals and speaks to me in terms of using that idea within my work too. Mark making is another really important aspect of my practice. I think when you do sort of free drawing and mark making, your signature often comes through if you practice that regularly, and I can see the same marks appearing in my paintings and my drawings and in my prints. I think what's particularly interesting, because a lot of my drawn marks, they have a map-like quality to them, when you then take them through into an etching process and you're actually able to start using some of the tools that traditional cartographers were using, they do take on a real map-like quality to them. And I think once you then start adding colours that are particularly sympathetic to that idea as well, those abstract images have really strong connotations of maps. For me, that's really important because this idea of having a sense of place, it allows the work to establish that feeling even further. And I really like, again, the fact that you can then experiment, so you could be printing those in different colours, and the different colours could give you the opportunity to create a map-like image that looks like a map of the sky, of the night sky, or it could look like a map of the land, or it could look like a map of the sea. So you've got different aspects and different areas when you're working with these sort of map-like images, and etching in particular really lends itself to that particular aesthetic. So moving forward with this idea of where the work, or how the work is inspired, so much of it comes from the idea, as I said before, of place, and the idea that actually we are products of the environment that we find ourselves in. For me, nature is a massively important factor in who I am. Spending time in nature, it calms me, it makes me feel more like myself, and it gives me an opportunity to, I suppose in some senses, practice mindfulness. Walking through nature, it gives me a time to myself to actually really organise my thoughts. And I carry this through into my work, which I also consider to be, in some senses, a practice of mindfulness. So when I'm working with the ideas of nature in my pieces, or be that images of trees, images of landscapes, or the more abstract images of working with sort of sacred geometry, really helps me to focus on the idea behind my work, which is all to do with how we fit into the world that we are within. Altogether, a lot of my work is hugely personal. It's really designed to actually help settle me as an individual. When I'm working, I feel more like myself than when I'm doing anything else at all. And by using these themes and by using these methods, I really find that I'm able to actually be much more involved with the work. I think the other thing about printmaking is it's such a repetitive process. Using printmaking presses or repeating things, there's something very rhythmic about that quality. It really does help to engage you fully into the piece of work that you're working with. That rhythm, it gives you a physicality in the work, and it enables you, as I say, just to be completely immersed in the piece of work that you're making. I tend to do my printmaking outside of the studio and bring the prints back here to work with to create three-dimensional sculptures. So I make my etchings at the place where I teach, and I also use an open access printmaking workshop to make my screen prints. I'm often looking for new ways of creating work, and will sort of try and experiment with lots of different printmaking methods just because I like to see what the outcomes are. I then bring those images or those ideas back to the studio, and then it enables me to actually push further the ideas that I'm working with. The pieces of work that were selected for the Flourish exhibition are all part of the same body of work, which were inspired by the Platonic solids. Plato suggested that each of those shapes, those 5 forms, represented one of the elements of the earth. So we have air, water, earth, fire, and the 5th element, ether. I have started to experiment with them, so the initial starting point was to work with those shapes and create 3-dimensional paper sculptures of each of those individual ones. Each one uses a different print, and there is some hand marble paper in there as well. Since I completed the first set of boxed paper sculptures, I have moved on, and I'm starting to look more at using repetition of the shapes within the work. So the other 2 pieces, Pyroclastic and Terrain, are both pieces that use a shape on a repeated basis. So in Pyroclastic I've used the tetrahedron, which is representative of fire, and that shape has been repeated in different forms. So you've got some screen prints in there, you've also got some hand marble paper, and you've got some etchings working in there as well. Terrain is another piece from that series that works with the cube repeated, and the cube is there to represent Earth. I think for me it's always important to look at where work is going next, and at the moment I'm just moving in to looking at some more complex polyhedrons and working with those for the next steps for this work. A lot of them are really interesting because they take the original Platonic solids, so they take the tetrahedron and they fit them together, or they take an icosahedron and they actually fit that together with another one of the Platonic solids, and that just makes a more complex form to work with, still based around sacred geometry, and still therefore has that connection with the way that the things are made up in our world around us. I'm also interested in making some freestanding work which allows the viewer to actually look around the whole of the piece of work. There's still scope for scaling up this work, and I would be really interested in trying to create something much larger scale, possibly in the future. Be interesting to create some sort of installation which allowed people to walk all the way around these 3-dimensional forms, but that will require some time and some planning. Maybe it's something I can look forward to doing at some point in the future. Thanks so much for taking the time today to listen to me talk about my work. I've really enjoyed sharing my practice with you. If you do have any questions in the future, feel free to contact me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and always happy to hear from people. But also you can see some further examples of my work on my website. Thank you also to Martin and the team who've put together such a fantastic exhibition in the Flourish Award this year, under really challenging conditions at times. It's been really, really superb to see the diversity of printmaking brought together, and it's something that I'm really proud to be part of. Thanks so much.